All right, we're back on the record with our jurors, counsel, and parties present. And again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. We have Agent Turbett back on the stand. And again, I would remind you that even though we took a short break, you are still under oath. And with that, Mr. Kodiaga, you may resume your direct examination.
Thank you, Judge. Agent Turbett, before we took a break, we had started talking about Huston Danker, whose name had come up in the investigations, correct?
Yes.
As part of your investigation, I think your testimony earlier was at some time in October of 2023, you do personally talk to Huston Danker, correct?
Yes.
Prior to talking to Mr. Danker in October of 2023, had you or one of your other agents talked to Mr. Danker in close proximity to the time of Ryan Cooper's death?
Yes, my colleague, a fellow DCI agent, spoke to Huston.
You reviewed that interview with Mr. Danker prior to even talking to him before talking to him in 2023, correct?
Yes, I reviewed the June 18 interview.
And June 18th, is that June 18th, 2021?
Yes.
The day that Ryan Cooper was killed.
Yes.
Reviewing that, did you understand that that Huston Danker was asked about her communication with the defendant, Karina Cooper, over Snapchat?
Yes.
What was his response to that?
Again, I think he says there's no real communication going on via Snapchat at that time.
When you say that, can you elaborate on what he says more on that?
I think he admits to some messaging, but again, there's nothing intimate or personal going on between the two of them.
Does it give a frequency of how often he being Huston Danker and Karina Cooper would communicate on Snapchat?
Once or twice a week.
Does it give a time frame of how long they would have been communicating?
I don't remember. It might have been a period of several months, 3 or 4 months.
But otherwise, these are random snaps, not anything.
Yes.
Does he get asked what his relationship with Karina Cooper entails?
Yes.
What does he say?
Again, she's been cutting his hair. I think he says at that point, maybe for a period of even a couple of years. And they have just had what he would describe as kind of a typical conversation almost between the person getting their hair cut and the person doing it.
Is Huston Danker asked if there was any problem between him and Ryan Cooper, especially as regards Snapchats?
Yes.
What's his response?
No problem between he and Ryan with regard specifically to anything to do with Snapchat.
Is he asked how he will describe his relationship with the defendant, Karina Cooper?
Yes, the agent asked him to talk about that.
What, in Huston Danker's words, how does he describe himself in terms of his relationship with Karina Cooper?
Huston tells the agent at that time that he's like a gay best friend to Karina, totally platonic. There's no sexual or romantic interest. So he says it's like a gay best friend.
Is he at this time confronted whether he was having an affair or a sexual affair with Karina Cooper?
He's asked that, yes.
And is his response still that no, it's just a gay best friend?
Yes, strong denial to any affair.
Does he acknowledge that there are rumors in the community that they are having a sexual relationship?
He does. He says during this time of her cutting his hair, they've talked about relationships and kids and life, and he has shared that he has a couple of young children. He's a single dad, so Karina has apparently done a little bit of babysitting, so he says the community picks up on the fact that his truck is over at the Cooper house on one occasion, and so the rumor has started that they're having an affair and that he is, in his words, banging Karina, having sex with her.
And so he says Karina has been watching his kids, and that's the extent, and that's what's led to the rumors, because the defendant has been babysitting his kids, his being Huston Danker's kids.
Yes, Houston's very clear in the June 18, 2021 interview that she just cuts his hair and then she has babysat for him. I think he puts it at several times, just a few times. And that is what has started the rumors in the community.
Is he asked if there's been any inappropriate Snapchats or messages between him, being Huston Danker, and the defendant, Karina Cooper?
Yes.
What's his response to that?
He says absolutely no inappropriate Snapchatting going between them.
Thank you very much, Agent Turbett. At this point, Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Ms. Watt?
Thank you. I understand you interviewed Karina, was it 2023?
Yes, May 4th, 2023.
And Aaron Cooper was there at the time as well?
He met on the driveway and was there for a short bit, and then he ended up leaving and staying in the area.
Was there a time where Karina wanted Aaron to stand by and be with her during the interview?
There was some discussion of that.
Okay. So at least at that time, Aaron and Karina appeared to be on good terms?
Seemed courteous, yeah, as we stood in the driveway and talked for a few minutes.
There's been a lot of talk about this Rottweiler dog and how the dog might be expected to behave. Did you review the body cam of Deputy Fangman?
No, I did.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
When he arrives on scene?
No, I did not.
Okay. So I guess, have you observed for yourself how this dog behaves?
No. I've only been told by others.
Is most of what you discussed with Karina on some sort of recording?
So the interview, as I said, or the total recording from the time I pull up in the driveway, I believe is 3 hours and 10 minutes. What you can hear is I activate my recorder immediately. I actually put a header on saying I've just arrived, the date and time. I get out and introduce myself, and at some point, unbeknownst to me, that recorder immediately malfunctions. It stops. I don't catch that until I'm now pretty far into my conversation with just Karina. I look down, so we're at about the 2-hour mark of my total time there, and I see the recorder has malfunctioned, so I immediately turn it on. And I'd taken good handwritten notes, so I recap everything with her and then continue on.
Okay. But with DCI agents, you do not have a body cam. It's only an audio recording?
That's correct.
You talked about how you talked to Karina about this geofencing, right?
Yes.
As an investigator, are you allowed to, is one of your tactics basically to sometimes tell people you have things that you may actually not have?
We would imply that we certainly have a better understanding or have more knowledge than we do sometimes. Yes.
Okay. So officers are allowed to lie to people?
They are. The Supreme Court has said that.
It's my understanding, in looking at your notes from the recording at least, that you explained to Karina how geofencing works.
Yes, in some type of kind of simple fashion.
Okay. and also how cell tower data works.
Again, in a simple way, yes. I think.
Right. But she didn't say, hold up, I already know all these things.
She did not. She just nodded and says yes.
Do we have geofencing information in this case that you're aware of?
I actually don't know. You'd have to speak to somebody on the technology side.
Okay. So I imagine then you don't necessarily know what the geofence actually captures and is capable of?
In this case?
In any?
It's not my area of expertise, so we would rely on other people. Geofencing has been used, and we would just ask what's been captured in a case-by-case basis if that's utilized.
Okay. So you wouldn't know whether the geofence actually captures every phone that travels through that fence?
In this case again, or?
In any?
I don't know how tightly someone would describe that. I guess you'd have to talk to somebody that has better understanding of that.
The conversation with Huston Danker in 2021 that we're discussing, that was captured on a video recording, correct?
It was.
Okay, and you had a chance to look at that?
I did.
Would you agree with me that his statements, the best evidence of those would be actually watching the video?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd like to play that video, and I'd mark it as Defendant's Exhibit C and ask that it be admitted.
Any objection?
No objection.
You ready for me to try your screen? Or just let me know.
Yes, let's try
All
it.
right.
I don't know, we'll find out.
No. Try it again. Give me 1 second. I just tried the screen again. All right. Nothing. All right. You wanted to approach. You. Okay, we are back on the record. Nobody left. We still have Mr. Or Agent Turbett at the stand. And with a little help from the state, we have the Defendant's Exhibit C ready to go. So, Ms. Watt, I think you were asking that this Exhibit C, which had been admitted, be published at this point?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So it appears to me we have half of it working at this point. That be fair?
That is fair.
Councilor Prode. I think with the agreement of council is we're going to move forward with, I think, questioning of witnesses, and we're going to try to set aside things that require use of technology at this point till maybe over the, and give council some time over the lunch hour to hopefully get squared away with all the tech issues that may crop up. So with that, we'll come back to playing that interview at a later point. Ms. Watt, why don't you go ahead then with your cross-examination?
I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
All right. Any redirect, Mr. Kodiaga?
Just to be clear, when you asked about the video recording that we were unable to play in regards to it being best evidence, is that just because it will have more details of exactly every word that was spoken?
Yes.
But your summary or summation to the jury is pretty much what that 20 minutes, what is said within that 20 minutes of that interview.
Yes, and what I said was accurate.
And pretty accurate to the flavor of what was said in that 20 minutes of that interview.
Very much so.
You talked about your interview being recorded by an audio recorder, correct?
Yes.
And even though your recorder failed, you still were able to capture a lot and go through the same with the defendant, Karina Cooper, of what you'd covered before.
Yes, I took very detailed notes, which we always do as a backup because malfunctions happen with those recorders in the field. And then I reread those things back to her to make sure I understood them correctly from my notes, and she agreed.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Any recross?
When I'm saying best evidence, I mean, wouldn't it be, as an investigator, you're evaluating somebody's credibility, right?
I am when I talk to people. Sure.
Okay, so when I say best evidence, it's just sometimes better to talk or see the person and hear the words come out of their mouth on a video.
You would have the benefit of visual, and you would have more detail, as the prosecution said.
Right. That's all. Thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Kodiaga?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Agent Turbett, you may step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Mr. Ringel or Mr. Kodiaga or Ms. Williams, state prepared to call its next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The state calls Kirsty Sheda.
All right. Good morning, ma'am. You want to come over and have a seat to my far left, if you would? So you can adjust that microphone however you'd like. Yep, it's on. You can move it up, down, closer. So.
Okay.
All right. First thing I'm going to do, ma'am, is swear you in. If you'd please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And then if you could please give us your first and last name and spell them both for us for the record.
Kirsty Sheda, Kirstie Sheda.
All right. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Sheda. Do you prefer Kirsty or Ms. Sheda?
Kirsty is fine.
Thank you. Kirsty, where do you currently live?
Traer, Iowa.
And are you currently employed?
Yes.
How are you employed?
I work at JSA Development, downtown Waterloo.
Okay. Ms. Sheda, at some point in 2024, did you meet with law enforcement regarding this case?
Yes.
Did they tell you why they wanted to meet with you?
No.
Was it generally to discuss the death of Ryan Cooper?
Yes.
Did you know Ryan and Karina Cooper well?
Yes.
How long have you known Ryan and Karina?
Probably 8 to 10 years.
Okay. When did you first meet them?
When I moved to town.
Okay.
Traer.
About when did you move to Traer?
2007.
Okay. Who'd you meet first, Ryan or Karina?
Ryan.
Okay. How did you meet Ryan?
I was working at a place in Traer, and it was a hardware store, cell phone place, so he came in for parts
Okay.
and cell phone.
At some point thereafter, did you meet Karina?
Yes.
Okay. And did you and Karina and Ryan develop a sort of friend group, I guess, as it were?
Yes.
And who all was in this friend group that you all shared?
It would have been me and my husband, Carmen and Jamie, Matt and Regan, Ike and Michelle, Cynthia and Barry. There was multiples.
What kind of things would you all do as a group?
Various things. We would go hang out at each other's places. A bunch of the friends had shops that we hung out at.
Was this a frequent type of activity or organization, or how would you characterize how often you all saw each other?
I would say, at least once a weekend, if not during the week also.
Did you all travel together?
Yes.
Okay. And take your friends and kids together on these
Correct.
trips? Okay. And you stated you knew Ryan first, correct?
Yes.
And how would you describe Ryan Cooper?
Man of little words.
Okay. Understand. Did you at some point work with Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, where was that at?
Aurora Agronomy.
Okay. What did you do there?
I was the office. Took care of all the books, ordering.
How did you come to be in that position at Aurora?
Karina had worked there before, and she was pregnant with Cortland, and then she wanted to stay home. So then I applied for the job.
Did she kind of refer you to that job or let you know in advance, hey, I'm leaving this position?
Yeah, we had talked.
Okay. And were you and Karina at one point, were you pregnant at the same time?
Yes, with our first children.
Okay. You kind of bond
our
over
second.
that? I'm sorry.
And our second.
And your second, okay. And did you all kind of bond over those
Yes.
kind of mutual pregnancies together? Would you say that you and Karina became good friends during that time?
Yes.
In this time that you knew Ryan and Karina together, what observations did you make about how Ryan would interact with Karina?
I guess if Karina was mad or yelling at him, his demeanor was always just to put his head down and take it.
How was he with his children?
Good.
You said at some point you and Karina also became good friends. How would you describe your relationship with Karina at the beginning?
Yeah, we had just a interest of bonding because we both did hair, and we kind of just became friends through that, and her starting to date Ryan. We would hang out as families together. We'd go on vacations together. We're just close with the whole Cooper family.
At some point, did you actually help out in her shop, her hair shop?
No, I'd never.
Did your friend group have kind of a group Snapchat?
Yes.
Okay. And was there one group Snapchat or were there several group
Several.
Snapchats? At some point, would you say that there was a shift in your relationship with Karina or Karina's relationship with the whole kind of extended friend group?
Yes.
Can you pinpoint about when that occurred?
Late fall of the year before Ryan was murdered.
So the fall of 2020, would that be about
Correct.
the time? What were some of the changes that you noticed?
Just pulling away from our friend group, not responding back to messages. We had heard some different things throughout town, and we just kind of started separating, I guess.
I guess that's kind of where I was going. Did something specific, or can you identify something specific that may have triggered that shift in the friend dynamic?
It would have been the rumors going around about her in Houston.
Before we get to that, I want to ask you a little bit about what you noticed between Karina and Ryan's dynamic. How would you describe Karina's behavior or towards Ryan?
Depending on a given day, some days were okay, some days were not, and her demeanor towards him was anger.
Can you recall any examples when you say some days were okay and then some days were not okay?
I mean, there was times where she would rant about him and talk about how, you know, he was always off working and doing all this stuff, and she would just get like angry about it. And at one of our conversations, she's like, we talked about, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember exactly her words, but it was like talking about if she would leave, she would try to take him for everything he had.
Were some of these incidents in front of Ryan? Would he be around during some of these times that she would behave this way?
I mean, when she was mad at him, she would, some of them were not. There was an instance where we were all hanging out and she would refer to him as, because we worked together, me and Ryan, she would refer to me as his work wife and kind of belittle, I guess, Ryan, and be like, why don't you ask your work wife? Maybe she can do it better for you.
Did you take that as kind of a dig?
Yeah, correct.
How would Ryan respond?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
Throughout Ryan's, or when you and Karina were discussing things, did she ever express to you any resentment towards Ryan?
Often.
What were those resentments centered around?
That Ryan got everything, or the farm got everything.
Were they primarily financial?
Yes.
Did Karina seem concerned with her place with the finances of the farm?
Objection, Your Honor. That's speculation, and much of this is beyond the scope of the minutes, Judge.
I'm sorry, what was the last part? I didn't.
Beyond the scope of the minutes. Speculation beyond the scope of the minutes.
Counsel
May we
want to
approach?
approach? All right. After a brief bench conference, it's my understanding that the objection, to the extent that it's related, was based on exceeding the minutes, is withdrawn. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Then the balance of the objection is overruled, and the witness may answer, assuming you remember the question.
No. Can you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Ms. O'Connell, can you repeat back the question?
Did Karina seem concerned with her place with the finances of the farm?
Yes, at one point there was a conversation about Ryan's ex-wife, Liz, and saying that Liz got everything, and if she stepped out, she would have nothing. She would not get anything
Thank you.
because everything was wrapped up in Cooper Farms.
Kirsty, did you know Huston Danker?
Yes.
How did you know him?
He is a couple years younger than my son, my oldest son, so he was a Traer boy, and
So you knew him from around town?
yes.
Okay. At some point, did you learn that Karina and Huston were engaged in some sort of relationship?
Objection, Your Honor. Relies on hearsay.
Overruled. You can answer.
Yes, I did.
How did you find out about this relationship?
We were at a friend's house, and he wound up showing up there in the late fall
And when you say
of 2020,
he, who are you referring to?
Houston.
Okay.
And we had heard throughout the day that they were texting each other and snapping each other back and forth. And when he got to the house, we took his phone and seen all the messages.
Did you actually see these messages yourself?
Her Snapchat handle was Casey with a heart, and I seen I love you and a picture above.
Where were you when you saw these messages?
I was at Pam Ewalt's house.
What did the messages suggest to you was the nature of Huston and Karina's relationship?
A sexual relationship, an affair.
Did you ever confront Karina about those messages?
I did not. She had sent me a message the next morning.
The message that she sent you the next morning, what did it say?
Paraphrasing, to the fact of, can you believe the rumors going around that me and Houston, I just did not respond because at that point there was so many things prior to that that just solidified to me that she was lying.
Did she ever admit to you that she was having a relationship or an affair with Huston?
No.
Are you aware personally if at some point Ryan Cooper became aware of the relationship between Karina and Huston?
Yes.
How are you aware of that?
Through one of the guys I worked with at Aurora.
So someone else told you that?
Yes.
Do you recall about when that occurred?
Spring.
Would have been spring of
Spring of
2021,
Yeah.
shortly before Ryan was killed.
Yeah, I'd say anywhere from that March, April-ish.
Okay. In the days and weeks leading up to Ryan's death, did you notice anything unusual or what you would describe as unusual about Karina's behavior?
Yes.
What did you notice?
2 days before his murder, we had all of our Snapchat group friend. Me and Carmen had gone down to a show in Dallas, Texas for our business. And when we landed and got to the airport, we were just scrolling through our Snapchats, and all of a sudden it said Karina had left the group, and we were going through the rest of them just normal, and she wound up going back, leaving all of the groups that we were ever a part of.
And can you just clarify, who is Carmen?
Carmen is a part of the friend group and a business partner of mine. Okay. Carmen Ehrhardt.
Did the ladies in the group kind of have a separate group that was apart from the full families of groups?
Yeah, we had multiple different groups.
Did you guys have kind of a
We had a golf group.
Okay, a golf group.
We had a TCMW group. I mean, we had them named all sorts of different things.
Okay. When you say the TCFW, was that the Tama County Housewives group?
Yes.
Okay. And so you're saying about 2 days before Ryan was killed, Karina just left all of the Snapchat groups. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did she give you a reason for exiting those groups?
Nope. I just remember in our golf group, there was a tournament on that Wednesday. All of us girls had started talking about getting a group together for golf on that Wednesday, like on that Monday prior. And I told the girls I was out because we were flying out. Everybody else in the group was talking to get their group. And then Karina just like never responded. She just...
I want to switch gears just a bit. Are you a gun owner, Kirsty?
Yes.
Okay. And what kind of firearm do you have?
A Ruger 9.
Okay. Did you ever talk to Karina about guns or firearms in general?
Yes, we had one conversation that I recall shortly after we got our permit to carries. Which is...
What types of guns did you and Karina talk about specifically, if any?
We talked about how I shot my Ruger 9 and I didn't like the kickback, that it kicked back really bad. And then I had shot my mother-in-law's baby 22 and that it was just like so smooth. And just how the correspondence of that was so different. And then she said the same thing. She's like, I just got a 22 as well, like, and it shoots so smooth. I understand what you're talking about. You know, like we just kind of talked about that.
So she described to you how the 22 shot as well?
Yes.
Do you remember about when that conversation occurred?
I would have got my permit to carry in 2018, December, so it would have been late winter going into January, February when we were hanging out.
Okay. So well before Ryan is killed, you guys are having pretty in-depth conversations about firearms and the different characteristics of the firearms you had, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. The defense may have some questions for you.
Mr. Hawbaker?
Thank you, Your Honor. Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
So you became good friends with Ms. Cooper, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you were good friends for quite a long time, fair?
Fair.
And even during that time that she might have yelled at Ryan or had good days or bad days, you remained her friend?
Correct.
Okay. And that behavior was nothing that was shocking or concerning to you. I'm assuming you chalked that up as just sort of the normal dynamics of a relationship.
At points, yes.
Yeah, okay. And the friend group that you were having, these snaps and things like that, did law enforcement ever seize your phone to verify the Snapchat conversations?
No.
Okay. But those conversations and whether or not Ms. Cooper left the group and things like that, presumably she did that from her phone?
Yes, she would have to remove herself from the group.
And all the time that you saw Ms. Cooper get angry at Ryan or anything like that, you never saw any act of violence by Ms. Cooper towards Ryan, correct?
It was not physical, verbal.
Never hitting, never smacking, nothing like that?
No.
Yeah. Or threats of physical harm, threats to shoot him or anything like that, never said that?
No.
This golf tournament that you were talking about, was Karina even invited to that?
She signed up on her own.
The guns that you were talking about, those are handguns, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. No talk about rifles or long guns?
No.
Okay. And the permit to carry, you ultimately got your permit to carry?
Yes.
And with that permit to carry, does that involve some education on your part?
Yes.
You have to learn some things.
Yes.
Are you aware that there are resources online that can provide you with that information?
I never looked into that, no.
Okay. Courses on guns, things like that?
No.
So you wouldn't know if Karina was taking advantage of those online resources when she was getting her permit?
I do not.
That information about the .22 being smooth, did you ever witness Ms. Cooper shoot that gun?
I did not.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any redirect?
Kirsty, were there points or incidences where you thought Karina's behavior towards Ryan was not normal or not appropriate?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Anything further, Mr. Hawbaker?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Mr. Kodiaga, is the state prepared to call its next witness?
The state calls Carmen Ehrhardt.
If anybody wants to stand up and stretch while we're waiting for the witness to come on in, feel free. I'm going to. All right, good morning, ma'am. If you want to go ahead and have a seat right there, that'd be great. And you can adjust that microphone however it best suits you. So first thing I'm going to do, ma'am, is swear you in. If you'd please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be giving in these proceedings will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And then for the record, can you please give me your first name and your last name and spell them both for us, please?
Yes, it's Carmen Ehrhardt,
First name C-A-R-M-E-N, last name E-R-H-A-R-D-T.
All right, Mr. Kodiaga.
Thank you. Still morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Stated your name. Can you tell us where you currently reside?
I live in Traer, Iowa.
Again, where?
Traer,
Traer.
Iowa. Yep.
And is this a community you've lived in for a long time?
Yes. I lived there since I've been married for 20 plus years.
Do you know a person by the name of Ryan Cooper?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Ryan Cooper?
I have known him got to know him very well through all the stuff that we did. Being a small town, you're going to know people, but as far as Ryan, we do things like such as going motorcycling, snowmobiling. We take vacations, stuff together, but have just known him more through my husband is how I got to know him.
What's your husband's name?
Jamie.
Okay. So you knew Ryan through Jamie.
Yes.
Fair to say you and the Coopers were family friends?
Yes, we did. I knew Ryan before I knew Karina, but once they got together, we got starting doing things such as when we started motorcycling and we'd go on motorcycling trips. We'd go on, we have a place in Wisconsin, and they would go, and for a short time that they had a camper up at that location in which we would share and spend weekends and holidays and stuff too at.
Do you know someone by the name of Karina Cooper?
Yes, I do.
Do you see that person in this courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify that person by where she's seated or an item of her clothing?
She's sitting over to my right with a sweater on.
Did the record reflect identification?
The record so reflects.
So you've testified you knew Karina through Ryan. Were your families pretty close?
We were, like I said, we did a lot of things together, from just vacationing or times, but I got to know her very well, became a good friend of hers. She would do my hair.
So we've had testimony that she used to cut hair and do hair?
Yes.
Okay. And that was at their home in Traer?
Yes.
At some point in the year leading up to Ryan's death, does the nature of the friendship change?
It does. We had a little bit of falling out. I would say that the friendship wasn't as close as it had been in the past.
Now, as someone who was around both Karina Cooper and Ryan Cooper, were there occasions that you and your husband and the Coopers would go out to socialize, maybe to drink or hang out?
Yes, it was quite frequent, yeah.
During these occasions, did you chance to notice or observe moments of hostility exhibited towards Ryan Cooper by Karina Cooper?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what issues would make Karina be hostile towards Ryan?
It would be different times, like arguments where she would just get very upset with him. She would, sometimes that was even directed to other people than just him, but she would just, for whatever reason, they would be arguing and she would get very loud and would argue in person with them.
Will she get very mean when she was upset with Ryan?
Yes, I mean, you could physically tell she was very upset and that with him.
Agitated?
I'm sorry.
Agitated.
One of the prime example would be is I know that we were at a location, we've been out, she was arguing with Ryan. another friend tried to step in and kind of like dissolve the situation. She even grabbed that person by the hair and ripped them back out of the argument. So you could physically tell that she was very upset. As far as the conversation, I don't know what was going on, but it was very blatant. You could see that she was not happy with them.
Now, were there conflict that you observed involving money or finances?
There's been conflict, yeah. We've personally had some conversations where she's shared some of what she may have felt like he was getting, and as far as what her money would go towards and what she would spend on. There would be conversations as far as the farm setup. Like I said, we spent a lot of time together. She was around my family. Our family farms, as far as how they're set up, were pretty similar, so I was familiar with how things were.
Can you tell the jury more about that?
Some of them would be the conversations we had would be where she would be upset, where she felt like if he wanted to buy a side-by-side, he would get the side-by-side. He wanted the truck, he got the truck, but her money, she would have to, that she was making, she would have to spend that on the food, the kids, and that, so she wouldn't get, but then she would also in the same breath state that if she, Ryan had to buy his own side-by-side, but Cooper's Farms would buy Aaron the side-by-side and stuff, so.
So, as regard the Cooper's farm, was it your observation or understanding that she knew how money was controlled in terms of the Cooper farm controlling some of the money that Ryan had access to?
Yes, I mean, in our and just our conversations to each other, yeah, she had a good understanding how it is, and just even, like I said, with the family farms being set up pretty similar, and knowing how those corporate farms work, she knew where the money came from.
Likewise, because your family had the same kind of setup, yes, where the corporate farming family was in charge of the finances of the yes, expenditure.
As far as, yep.
At some point, do you become aware of the defendant, Karina Cooper, having an affair with someone named Huston Danker?
At first, it was just hearsay as far as rumors. But the day I really became very well aware of it is we had been actually out an evening at Larry's in Lincoln, and we had all been, Ryan, Karina, Jamie and I had been there. We had actually left earlier before the bar closed and went home. We were already in bed asleep once we got a phone call, which actually was Ryan calling Jamie in the middle of the night, which was that was unusual. In fact, I think it was probably the first time we ever got a phone call that late at night from him. So my husband answered it, afraid that like something had happened, and so he picked up the phone and he was talking to him. Ryan proceeds to tell Jamie that...
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Sustained.
So, there was a phone call Ryan makes at night.
Mm-hmm.
That phone call, is that how you became aware of an affair?
Yes.
Did you ever personally confront Karina about the affair with Huston Danker?
I didn't, for a few different reasons.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Sustained.
Now, so the answer to your question is you didn't confront Karina. Fair enough?
I did not know.
Let's talk about your knowledge of firearms and Karina's knowledge of firearms. Did you attend a class or situation where you would have been with Karina and she would have been around firearms?
Yes, I took a concealed weapons permit class, which was actually held at Ryan and Karina's home in the shop at their home.
So there was a class that you took in Karina's and Ryan Cooper's home.
At the shop, yes.
From your understanding and from your relationship that you've talked broadly about that stretches across various years, was your observation that Karina had a fair good knowledge of firearms?
Yes, my husband had given me a gun for a Christmas gift. And with that, we've had conversations about that. We've talked about, because at times when I've actually shot the gun, and just discussion about the gun as far as the one he had given me, a little bit of my comfort level, and we talked back and forth about that. In that, just in our general conversation, when I was given that gift, the gun as a gift, she had made comments about how, my husband gets me a gun, Ryan, why don't you get me something like that? We've just in general talked about the fact that one of the reasons I took a concealed weapons permit is because any vehicle, any of our friend groups, no matter if it's ours, anybody's, there's typically a gun that's concealed in there. So the properly covered, we took that. Like I said, I've talked to, as far as shooting it, being the comfort level of it, having them, being around them. We've had conversations. I've never, will honestly physically say that I can recall or remember.
Objection, Your Honor. Narrative.
Sustained.
So fair enough that she and you had been around firearms in many occasions and had discussed firearms in more than one sitting.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, let's talk about in the time leading, in the months or the period, the approximate period leading to Ryan's killing, was there some behavior changes that you noticed from Karina Cooper?
Yes, there was. Pulling out of friend groups, things that we did constantly together, no longer being involved in those. A great amount of weight loss that I even questioned and even asked her, and that's even in writing somewhere. So
withdrawal from your friend group and also physical in terms of how experiencing what you observed as some weight loss?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time.
Mr. Hawbaker?
Good morning, ma'am. How long were you friends with Miss Cooper?
We would have became friends closer to when we started motorcycling together, so it would have been roughly around a little bit before, I would say closer to after they'd been married.
And it occurs to me that when you say we were out or we were at a place, 9 times out of 10 you guys were at a bar or something like that, is that right?
It would be boating, it would be on snowmobiles, it'd be,
There were times to get together for social drinking.
yes.
Okay. And that's oftentimes when you would witness Ms. Cooper get louder or upset or things like that, right?
It could have been, yes.
Was there some belief that that might have been related to alcohol?
There could be, yeah.
Yeah. And when she was upset, it could be about any number of things, not necessarily finances. It could just be something on that day. Fair? Mm-hmm. Yes?
Yes, sorry.
All right. So the finances weren't exactly a theme when she was upset. There are a lot of things that would make her upset. Fair?
Yep.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that you're familiar with family farms.
Yes.
You're familiar because of your marriage, I assume, with how the LLCs work and that sort of thing?
It's on my side of the family farm.
It's on your side of the
Yep.
family farm. So you have that familiarity,
Yes.
and you shared that familiarity with Ms. Cooper.
Yep.
Okay. Not unusual.
Nope.
The discussion and with firearms, was it your understanding that the husbands or people were getting you and Miss Cooper a handgun, and in particular wanted to make sure that you had a permit to carry because anybody could be in a car with a gun in it and people didn't want to get in trouble?
At the original, when we got that was the main, because there was understanding of it. But then as far as wanting to carry one myself, and later and being able to have my own at my own time. Yep.
Yeah. But as far as you and Miss Cooper, the idea that you needed a permit to carry was related to the fact that, you know, there could be a shotgun in the car or something like that out on the farm, and the husbands didn't want people to get in trouble for driving those cars. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And when you talked about guns, that was always about handguns, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that was what you had, presumably what Ms. Cooper was asking for when she made the comment to Ryan. Fair?
Yep.
No talk about long guns or rifles or that sort of thing, right?
We've talked about shooting as far as guns, but I mean, as far as the actual guns they gave us would have been just regular guns, handguns.
Handguns, right. Nothing further. Thank you.
Yep.
Any redirect, Mr. Kodiaga?
You've talked about shooting different types of guns and being around guns together, correct?
Yep.
Which involves a wide array of guns, from long guns to handguns.
Correct.
Fair enough. To you asked how long you've known Karina and Ryan. You said from when they were married. That's over a decade ago, correct?
Correct.
So you have a pretty good window into their relationship.
Yes.
And that window into their relationship, your testimony to this jury, is she will be upset at him for many reasons, including finances.
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Hotbaker?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. Stay prepared to call its next witness.
Judge, we've moved pretty quick. Our next witness was scheduled for after lunch.
Okay. We're at 11:39. I'm going to actually ask you, ladies and gentlemen, want to keep this moving, but I also normally we go till 1:30, and you may have had plans. Are you okay if we go from now till, say, 1:15 and start 15 minutes earlier? Anybody have an issue with that? Okay, then that's what we're going to do. We'll take a lunch break now, and we'll start at 1:15. And ladies and gentlemen, again, I would just remind you of the admonition that I've given you previously. Again, high points, keep an open mind. Don't talk to anybody about the case. Don't let anybody talk to you about the case. Don't do any type of research or investigation, and avoid any and all media accounts and social media accounts of related to these proceedings. So have a good lunch, everybody. So just real quick on the record, I think we had a couple bench conferences. One proceeded the on-the-record discussion about the objection and just to kind of notify me of that. I think we had another one primarily just related to scheduling, and then we had another one that related to, I guess, my inquiry about whether we could postpone playing Exhibit C and move on with the witnesses. Was there, I don't recall anything else of substance that occurred. Anybody want to supplement that record or add to that record on bench conferences? Ms. Watt, anything on your end?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, Mr. Kodiaga?
No, I would just like to maybe ask the court what time, if we're going to play this exhibit.
Well, I think that's going to be dependent on, I mean, it doesn't make sense to, I mean, we're done with the witness, we could do it right when we start. That's fine with me, but I guess that's assuming you guys can get the technology squared away. So anything else we need to do on the record?